Welcome to this video about our beautiful province, New Brunswick. This video introduces New Brunswick Now, your podcast airing every Tuesday and Thursday. Looking ahead to 2028, we invite you to support New Brunswick Now. Finally, meet our host, Peter Phillips, the founder of New Brunswick Now. You can find more information at our website.
Good morning and welcome to Tuesday's New Brunswick Now Journal podcast, July 21st, 2026. Today we are going to talk about changing our politicians, not just the policies. I'm Peter Phillips and I want to thank you for spending part of your day with me. Every Tuesday and Thursday we will release a new podcast where we take a deeper look at the issues affecting New Brunswick. Not just the headlines, but the reason these headlines keep repeating themselves. Monday, you'll receive our Monday briefing. Tuesday, the New Brunswick Now podcast will discuss a variety of topics. On Wednesday, we'll just be posting like general news. Thursday, our podcast will step back from the daily news and discuss our party's platform, diving deep into each plank so you have an understanding of where our party stands on each issue. Then on Friday, our paid subscriber will receive Behind the Curtain, a weekly journal documenting what it's really like to build a brand new political party from the ground up. No scripts, no spin, just the real story. I think you'll find it well worth your subscription. Now, let's get into today's discussion. All these posts and podcasts that I just mentioned drop at 10 a.m. So if you want to be there when they drop, it's 10 a.m. or you can pick them up after. Since creating Brunswick Broken Healthcare, I've read thousands of comments. I've spoken with nurses, doctors, paramedics, patients, families, seniors, business owners, people from every corner of the province. Then after months of listening, researching, and asking questions, I helped launch a new political party called New Brunswick Now. Along the journey, I realized something that has stayed with me ever since. We've become very good at documenting the problem. We haven't become very good at changing the people who create it. Think about that for a moment. Every day another article appears, another report, another waiting list, another survey, another promise, another announcement, and somehow nothing really changes. It's interesting that health advocacy has probably become one of the larger industries in Canada and has been for 20 years, and still we see no visible improvements. But that's because this podcast isn't really about politics. It's about how change actually happens. Because if we don't understand that, we'll keep repeating the same cycle for another 20 years. Part 1. We've become experts at describing problems, as I just mentioned. For years, New Brunswickers have done everything we've been told citizens are supposed to do. We've signed petitions, written letters, sent emails, called radio shows, if they even do that anymore, attended town halls, filled out surveys, contacted our MLAs, and when you contact an MLA, you're usually not going to get an answer from them. You'll get an answer from their assistant. Spoken to reporters, shared social media posts, marched from rallies, created advocacy groups. We've elected Liberal governments, we've elected Conservative governments, we've watched governments change, yet somehow the problem remains. Healthcare is still struggling, and finding a family doctor is still difficult. Emergency rooms still closed, housing costs continue climbing, young people continue leaving. So here's the question. I've been doing everything democracy tells us to do. Why aren't we getting different results? I don't ask that question to criticize anyone. I ask it because I think it's the most important question New Brunswickers can answer. Because maybe we've been trying to solve the problem at the wrong level. Part 2. How politics really works. One thing I've learned over the past several years is that politicians rarely change because someone proves they're wrong. They change because the political cost of doing nothing becomes greater than the cost of acting. That's true everywhere, not just in New Brunswick. Let's think about history. Our seatbelt laws, smoking bans, drunk driving legislation, even women's right to vote, universal health care, civil rights. None of those happened because politicians suddenly woke up one morning with a completely different opinion. They happened because ordinary citizens changed public opinion. When enough people demand change, politicians realize they had to respond. That's how democracy works. It really is a numbers game. Politicians respond to incentives, they respond to pressure. More importantly, they respond to elections. This isn't cynicism, it's simply understanding how representative democracy functions. When citizens understand that, they become far more effective. Here's a lesson from everyday life. Imagine your smoke detector starts beeping every night. You could remove the batteries, close the bedroom door, turn up the television. Eventually, you might stop hearing it, but none of those actions fixed the actual problem. The alarm wasn't the problem, the alarm was the warning. I sometimes think we've treated politics the same way. We've learned to manage the symptoms instead of fixing what's causing them. Part three. Uh, this is what I call the three levels of change. I think probably we're in level two, but I'll go through them. Um, Level one, people complain. We talk with our friends and neighbors. We post online. We vent. Nothing changes. Most people never move beyond this point. Level two, people organize. Groups form. Information spreads. Research gets collected. Media begins paying attention. Government starts feeling pressure. Sometimes small improvements happen, but governments still control the conversation. Level three is where we're trying to get to. People become the alternative. Now something changes. Politicians suddenly realize voters have another opinion. Competition enters the system. That's where democracy becomes strongest. Not because a new political party has all the answers, but because competition changes behavior. Think about business. When one company has no competition, service usually declines, innovation slows, customers have fewer choices. Then a competitor appears. Suddenly prices improve, customer service improves, innovation accelerates. Politics isn't very different. Competition improves performance, not because politicians are bad people, because accountability works. Why New Brunswick now exists? I have a lot of people ask me that. Why start another political party? Here's my answer. Because democracy works best when voters have real choice. We're not here because we think we're perfect. We're here because the current political system has become too comfortable, too predictable, too safe. If governments know they'll simply alternate power every few years, where's the incentive to fundamentally change? Real competition creates better government. Whether we ever form government or not, our goal is to change the conversation, to force every party in New Brunswick to take New Brunswick's future more seriously. Every election, when we collectively vote for the Liberals or the Conservatives or the Green Party, we are actually endorsing their policies and endorsing their healthcare policies, their education policies. And I think sometimes we just vote because that's how we always voted. If we really want to vote our conscience, then we should vote for New Brunswick now that's actually going to change things. Here's a question worth asking. Here's something I think every voter should honestly consider. If government over the last 30 years hasn't solved these problems, why do we automatically assume the next government, made up of many of the same people operating within the same political culture, will suddenly produce dramatically different results? That's not an attack, it's a simple question, and I just mentioned that previously. Albert Einstein is often credited with saying insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Whether he did or not, whether he said it, the point still deserves consideration, and I think it's really applicable to voters in New Brunswick. Two simple analogies. Imagine you're baking a cake. Every time you follow the recipe, the cake burns. Would you make that exact same recipe tomorrow? Of course not. You change the ingredients, or the oven temperature, or the timing. Now mention calling a disconnected phone number. You dial it once, nothing. Twice, nothing. 100 times, still nothing. The problem isn't persistence. You're putting in the effort. The problem is the number. Sometimes success requires changing the approach, not trying harder at the same one. One comment I hear often is, I'm not political. I understand what people mean. They're tired, frustrated, disappointed. But here's another way to think about it. Needing a family doctor isn't political. Waiting 20 hours in an emergency room isn't political. Paying higher grocery bills isn't political. Trying to find affordable housing isn't political. Watching your children leave the province for better opportunities isn't political. These are life issues. Government decisions influence every one of them. Whether we pay attention or not, politics still affects our daily lives. Another comment I hear frequently is, I don't want to split the vote. I understand the concern. It's a legitimate concern for some people, but I would ask something in return. What has staying the course accomplished? Has healthcare significantly improved? Has affordability become easier? Have wait times disappeared? Have more young people decided to stay? If the answer is no, then perhaps the greater risk isn't trying something new. Perhaps the greater risk is continuing to expect different results from the same political pattern. This is what I'll say in closing. New Brunswick doesn't belong to politicians, it belongs to us, the citizens. Governments don't own democracy, we do. Every major improvement throughout history began when ordinary people decided to stop waiting for someone else. They accepted responsibility. That's what New Brunswick now represents. Not replacing one politician with another, replacing resignation with participation, replacing frustration with action, replacing, somebody should do something with, maybe that someone is us. I'll say that one more time. If we spend years saying someone should do something, then maybe, just maybe, that someone is us. I want to add a lesson of the week to each podcast, just as an added feature. And the lesson of the week this week is, awareness does not create change. Organization creates change. Elections create accountability. Citizens create elections. Never forget where real political power begins. It doesn't begin in Fredericton. It doesn't begin in Ottawa. It begins with ordinary citizens deciding to get involved. Thank you for joining me today. I truly appreciate it, your time and support. Until Thursday, remember, New Brunswick belongs to all of us. Together we can change the future. Thank you.